The Tudors absolutely loved a feast and employed teams of cooks to cater for their every desire. Amongst them were specialists at making miraculous table decorations known as subtleties. Today, I've come to Hampton Court Palace Kitchens to learn more from Tudor food expert Richard Fitch. So what is a subtlety? Is it decorative or is it edible too?
Good question, and I suppose it's a bit of both. For most of the records that we have, a subtlety is an edible, sweet delicacy, mostly made of sugar or almonds in a marzipan paste. But equally, we know that subtleties made for continental courts could be like theatrical set pieces. So if you walked into a theatre, that could be just as easily described as a subtlety as well. People have always liked to show off, but as far as the subtlety is concerned, we can certainly trace it back to the middle of the 15th century and the court of Burgundy. They're the ones that really go for it, a whole hog. Lots of lavish, superlative entertainment, huge set pieces, spectacular sugar work. And they are the court that the whole of Europe wants to emulate. They're seen as the height of perfection.
So this is a late medieval practice that makes its way into the Tudor period and beyond.
Absolutely, and I suppose really Henry VIII is the apogee of it, and from that point onwards it's on a downward trend because it's just so expensive, it's so costly. It's completely out of the realms of affordability for normal people. Right. Not because the objects themselves are that expensive. Henry regulates the cost of sugar by statute and keeps it down to what he considers to be an affordable price. But that affordable price is the equivalent of 6 to 8 months of wages for a normal person. And they just don't have that disposable income.
So it's completely frivolous, a bit like an ice sculpture today, but even more so because it's made from a really expensive commodity.
Yeah, ice sculpture, wedding cake, birthday cake, the sort of thing where we spend inordinate amounts of money, inordinate amounts of someone's time creating this thing, which is designed to realistically not be eaten. So sugar's being imported from the Mediterranean area. It comes from Persia, from Iran and Iraq. At the very beginning of Henry's reign, it's all being imported to England through Amsterdam, which is the largest refinery in Europe. By the end of his reign, we're starting to see sugar coming in from the Canary Islands into London, and London becoming the largest refining centre within the European countries.
So on the scale from simple to ridiculous, tell us about the subtleties.
Well, if we start at ridiculous, we know that the Burgundian court built a mountain that was in one of the rooms. You, as a diner, would leave the room where you ate, move into a secondary room to see the subtlety while the dining room was reset for a second course. And within this room, they built a mountain range. Inside the mountain range were musicians who would come out through little windows. Courtiers dressed as goats could climb up and down the mountain, and the guests were also invited to shoot at them and hunt them with low-powered crossbows throughout.
Right. So that's the top of the scale.
So that's at the top of the scale, and right at the bottom end of the scale, sugar cups, sugar playing cards, simple little decorative things.
Can they actually be used? Can they play with the cards, or is it just to look at?
They can play with the cards if you make enough of them and you make a full set. If you want, you can drink out of the cups as long as you've left them to dry. We know they made a chessboard, or 2 chessboards that we have references for.
So who would have been making these subtleties? Was it cooks? Was it confectioners? Was it artists?
Well, arguably they could all be the same person, but for Henry VIII, he had a team of confectioners that made the sugar subtleties.
So we know these are for special occasions. What about Christmas?
Absolutely. We know that Queen Elizabeth I received a number of subtleties for Christmas gifts throughout the 1580s and 1590s. She received a chessboard in one particular year, a marchpane model of old St Paul's Cathedral. Both of those were presented to her by her cooks. We presume that they're showing their skill as well as their status and potentially trying to inveigle their way into her good books, but there's no real information as to what the purpose was of the gift. Jerry here is going through some of the processes that you can try at home to replicate your own 16th century subtlety. Here on the table, we've got some examples of things that we've made in the past based on descriptions from 16th century sources. So first thing, Jerry is going to make a small sugar soldier. He's got a mould. Our mould is made of alabaster. It's been hand carved by one of our experts here at Hampton Court Palace, but you could use any mould that you've got at home. So what Jerry is going to be doing is to take the paste that has already been made from a mix of icing sugar, egg white, rose water and a gum called gum tragacanth, but you might find it easier to get hold of gum arabic, as that's used a lot in modern confectionery modelling. That's all mixed together into a paste and then left to develop for a couple of hours. In a 16th century kitchen, it would be left in a bowl covered with a damp rag. In a modern context, if you wrap it in cling film and leave it in the fridge for a few hours, it'll just firm up a little bit and make it easier to use. We're going to take the sugar plate and sugar paste that's been made, take off a small amount of that. It's a pliable modelling paste. You take your mould, you take your paste, push it inside, make sure you expel all of the air, either using your fingers or a rolling pin or small tools, back of a spoon for example. Then turn it out onto a flat surface. Trim around the edge with a knife to get rid of any excess and tidy it up. Potentially add a little bit of detail with these small tools that you might have, a little bit of finessing with your fingers, and then take that away and put it somewhere nice and warm and dry so that it can dry out over a few days and harden up, ready for you to decorate later on. If you wanted to, you can take food colouring and mix that into the sugar plate to give it colours, and then use those different coloured pieces to make different parts of the model that you're going to make. Or you could wait until the whole thing is dry and gone hard, and then use those food colours as paints. So as well as modelling with moulds, what we can do is we could free model, or we could make something relatively simple, playing cards in this case. So once you've taken your sugar plate, rolled it out nice and thin, you can cut out rectangles to make your playing cards. Once you've finished with your design, just like you did with the sugar, take it away and put it somewhere warm and dry, and once that's done, it should be good for life. There's no reason that this sugar playing card or any of the sugar models should deteriorate.